Hello everyone. This video will talk about the sun. In the past videos, we started on discussing the solar system. We discussed the shortly on the components of the solar system, and one of them was the sun. Now, the sun is the medium star, as it looks much bigger because it is closer to the Earth than the other stars. So, if you observe on the sky, you might see there are many of billions of stars. Now the sun is one of them, but it appears bigger because why? Because it's closer to the Earth than the other stars, and it's also that the other stars also had, could be maybe bigger than the sun, but because they are far away, so we tend to see it, they are smaller. Now the sun is much larger than the Earth. Actually, that's obviously so, and in fact, it's much larger than all the other components of the solar system put together. So all the other components of the solar system, if we put them together, they still won't be able to match the hugeness of the sun, as it is very big compared to the other stars which are closer to the Earth. Now, which is actually only the sun. Now, the sun is the main source of energy that the planets receive. So this is the main source of energy. Without the sun, maybe there couldn't be other sources of energy. So this is the main source of energy. It is the source. It is the main source. It means that the other sources can be generated from this source of energy. Now it is composed here approximately 75% of hydrogen, 23% of helium, and 2% of other elements. So that's shortly about the sun. Let's move on. Uh, in terms of more of how the sun is, the diameter of the sun is 1.392 million kilometers, and its mass is approximately 330,000 times larger than that of the Earth. So that's obvious like that the sun's mass is really a lot. Now the sun shines bright because of its very high temperatures. What are its high temperatures? The average surface temperature is about 6,000 degrees centigrade. And it is much hotter in the interior, where it is about 14 million degrees centigrade. Now that's that hotness. You can't imagine how hot it is. So that's shortly about the sun. Let's talk about the solar energy. What is the solar energy? This is the clean energy that is uh, produced by the sun. So it can be defined shortly as the radiant that is the light and the heat energy produced by the sun. Shortly speaks like that. So the different uses of the solar energy. The following are some of the different uses of the solar energy in the everyday life. I will talk on few of them. There are really many of them. Let's start with the first one, that is generation of electricity. Uh, Generation of electricity, here we talk about the use of solar panels. Since the solar energy is captured by these solar panels and is stored in the batteries. Now the batteries, that energy, the electricity that is generated by this means is used in powering various machines and devices where other power supplies are absent, maybe example such in remote places. So if you ever gone to remote places, you might see there is use of these solar panels to generate solar energy as in electricity. Uh, Moving on, the second one is it is the use of solar energy that it is used in cooking, heating, and drying. So it is direct when it is used direct in heating, cooking, and drying clothes, meat, fish, fruits, grains, among other traditional uses. So it means that the drying is made or the heating is made through the exposure of whatever this the solar cooker example to the sun. So you can cook through the solar cooker. Also about the drying, you expose these clothes, meat, fish, fruits, and the grains to the sun as we daily use it to dry our clothes example. Now, so a solar cooker is the one which traps heat from the sun that can be used to cook food. The other one is that it is used in photosynthesis. This is the process of the plants produce their own food. Now it is used by growing plants, so making their own food through this process. As the sunlight is one of the main components of the solar system. Moving on, the other one is the formation of coal and the oil. As coal is the solar energy stored in the bodies of plants that grew thousands of years ago, which after being buried under the earth for a long period of time, they turned into coal. So after deposition of these the plants and the animals, so for thousands of years, so they make this coal. Now, similarly, oil was formed from the dead bodies of organisms. All this coal and oil is formed from the dead organisms, whereby the solar energy stored in their bodies is what is extracted. It is what it is making that the coal and oil, and there are plenty of uses of coal and oil in our daily lives. The other one is that used in the formation of rainfall as the evaporation of water, which is necessary for cloud independent rainfall formation, also uses solar energy. Uh, the sunlight it helps in the evaporation process, that is the changing of water to vapor. So that evaporation after evaporation, there's a condensation. The condensation is what makes the cloud. Then after the clouds, then they turn back to water as the rainfall. So the cycle continues on. So without the solar energy, uh, the rainfall formation will not be there. Let's move on to the last point, that is the production of vitamin D in the skin. Vitamin D is essential for us as the main component or the main supply of vitamin D can be the exposure of skin to the sun. So if a person has been exposed to the sun for a long time, he or she might have the deficiency of vitamin D. So the most well-known source of vitamin D is their synthesis in the skin induced by the sun exposure. That's the most well-known source of vitamin D, apart from the other other sources, example maybe diet. Moving on, let's see how the use of solar energy promotes the environmental conservation. The following lines explains how solar energy promotes environmental conservation in our communities. As we've talked before, that the solar energy is the main source of energy, and it is the most clean. It's the clean energy, so it has less pollution to our environment. So let's see how this solar energy supports or promotes environmental conservation. Environmental conservation is the process of keeping our environment safe from environment pollutions. The first one is that the solar energy is supportive to our aerial environment. Aerial environment is means the atmosphere. So the atmosphere uh, composed of various layers there. We'll talk about them in the other videos. So the solar system is supportive to the atmosphere. As example, the ozone layer that is kept clean or is kept okay when there is use of solar energy. So the solar energy does not release carbon dioxide gases into this atmosphere. So the carbon dioxide gases when it is in excess, it's one that leads also to the greenhouse effect. Now, the second one is that solar energy promotes the use of other renewable sources of energy, such as wind energy, water energy, and the others. As we've said before, that the solar energy is the main source of energy. Moving on, that the use of solar energy reduces the demand of non-renewable sources of energy. Uh, Renewable sources of energy, these are the sources of energy that can be reused again, while the non-renewable sources of energy are the ones that cannot be reused again. Now, these the use of solar energy reduces the demand and the use of these non-renewable sources of energy, such as charcoal and firewood, which can be extracted from the forest by the processes of deforestation, that is the cutting down of trees. So these these sources of energy, the non-renewable, tend to be reduced when there is use of solar energy, as the use of charcoal and firewood can be skipped out, and the could be use of solar energy. Example, the electricity we get from the solar energy to be used for the cooking and the other purposes. Moving on, the lesson that the use of solar energy encourages the preservation and conservation, the sustainable utilization of forest resources. The use of solar energy means that it encourages the deforestation, that is the planting of trees where there were trees before, and the process of afforestation, that is planting trees where there were no trees before. So this is the solar energy encourages these preservative and the conservative acts of the forest resources, as the forest resources are crucial and really important in daily life. Example, use the production of timber, the source of fresh and clean air, and it is the source of or the good scenery, or the best view, provides the best view of the place. So that's all about how the uses of solar energy to conserve our environment. Thank you for listening. I hope it's clear, and if you have any question, please leave it in the comment section. So in this video, we've talked about the sun, the components of specifically how the sun it is. We talked about the uses of solar energy. We've also talked about the how the solar energy can be used to conserve the environment.